My name is Ernest Lamoth. I'm a reporter for the Southland Journal.
Hello, good morning. My name is Yolanda Sayre, and I am a candidate for Circuit Court, countywide Circuit Court judge in the Ingram vacancy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about your overall career?
Certainly. Right now, I am legal counsel for the Illinois State Police, where I practice litigation, employment law, employee discipline, the Fourth Amendment law, and firearm safety law. So civil rights and firearm safety laws. Before that, I was an attorney. I was with the Chicago Police Department, assigned to the Office of Constitutional Policing and Reform. I was an attorney, an instructor, and a subject matter expert in the Fourth Amendment in criminal law and criminal procedure. I've testified as an expert in state and federal court. I've testified for officers and against officers in terms of the city. I've seen great police work, but I've also seen egregious abuses of power that have sent officers to prison. My last assignment at CPD was writing the new constitutional policing curriculum for the entire city and advising the city law department's public safety reform division. I was also a prosecutor for the Secretary of State for 2 years on contract, where I represented the secretary in more than 100 hearings. I've also been an administrative law judge for 10 years, where I presided over formal adversarial hearings, which take as long as 12 weeks. These aren't minor hearings where your car gets booted and you go in and you plead your case. These were contentious adversarial hearings with expert witnesses, lay witnesses, initial hearings, motion hearings, evidentiary hearings, and then a written decision at the end. So that's where I get the quasi-judicial experience. I've also done a great deal of community service. Before I talk about that, I started my career with the Texas Attorney General's office. Early in my career, I litigated cases with a student bar card and basically insurance, banking, and securities fraud cases. And so that's where I learned the fundamentals of litigation. I've done a great deal of community service. I've done expungements and pro se limited scope agreements, which are agreements with people to help them draft pleadings and things like that when they're going into court and they don't have attorneys. So I've done an extensive amount of work with pro se litigants throughout my career. I feel like it's important. 69% of all court cases involve at least one pro se litigant, was the last statistics I was made aware of. So that's about it for my career. I've done also teaching. So I've taught 92 different topics. I have done continuing legal education and taught criminal defense attorneys and criminal attorneys in general law as part of my volunteer work.
And can you talk a little bit of why you decided that you wanted to run for public office?
Well, I really never wanted to be a judge initially in my career. It was never like my dream or anything like that. But what I found was as an ALJ, I had hearings, and I had individuals that were not represented, some of them, right? So on the one side, I would have what we call a pro se litigant, which means a self-represented litigant. And on the other side, I would have a high-powered attorney. And so I started getting the reputation for treating the self-represented litigant fairly and allowing them to be heard and basically not necessarily helping them, but just helping them understand the process, right? And on the other hand, not making the attorneys feel as if they were being disadvantaged either. And so my coworkers started, overhearing my hearings and, listening in, and they started encouraging me to be a judge. And I work with retired judges, and they kept saying, you need to be a judge. You need to be a judge. And I was like, no way. I mean, yeah, right. And so eventually, I felt like I got many, many signs from above, from God to do it. And, I mean, scary signs, things that were pretty amazing to me. And finally, I started to feel like it was my calling and that I did need to do it. I enjoyed it. Absolutely. So that's pretty much what helped me decide. Last cycle, I went through slating and I was slated as an alternate. I opted not to run anyway because I didn't get a seat. And so I helped the people that were running. And so this time I went for slating again. Again, I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but I did it. And I was slated by the Democratic Party. And so here I am running, asking for all of your support.
And Yolanda, can you talk a little bit about some of the issues that are essential and important to you?
I believe that fairness is important. I believe that helping people navigate a very, very difficult system. Our court system is difficult. It's difficult for attorneys, much less the self-represented litigant. So that's very important to me. And from what I've heard, the number of people that are having to represent themselves in court is increasing. So to me, it's about access, right? Another thing is, when we think about fairness, we have to think about access. And there's people with language barriers that also have difficulty accessing justice, so to speak. And so I'm African American, but I speak fluent Spanish. I learned when I was little. And, when I was a baby, I grew up in the islands. And so basically, to me, I have stopped hearings because I knew that the interpreter wasn't getting it right. I could tell that based on the way the person answered the question. So I don't speak perfectly, but I speak fluently and I speak well enough to understand whether or not someone is getting a fair interpretation. And that's important to me as well, because there are many, many people that have language barriers. So between, economics and language barriers and issues like that, I think it's important to help increase access. It's also important that we are represented on the bench, right? That people are able to see a reflection of themselves when they go into some courtrooms. Maybe not all courtrooms, but I think it's important that the judiciary reflect the community. And so I think diversity is very important on the bench. I believe that diversity of perspective is also important on the bench. As a circuit court judge, you can be assigned anywhere. I have a broad set of experience. And so I could sit in a criminal courtroom. I could sit in a juvenile courtroom. I've taught juvenile law for 23 years. I've done enough administrative proceedings that I could sit in a chancery court doing administrative review. Every single administrative decision made by a state agency or some government entity is reviewed by the circuit court if it gets appealed. I was never reversed by the circuit court or the appellate court in 10 years. And I also believe that I could handle a courtroom that was doing administrative review. I could do domestic violence and traffic and also expedited election proceedings. So there's many different places where I could be put and be able to serve the judiciary well and serve the community well. And that's important to me. Judges don't really have platforms, right? Like we can't tell you, our belief system in terms of, issues that may come before us. And so we're prohibited by the Supreme Court rules governing judges and judicial candidates from saying certain things and having a platform, right? But I can tell you what I stand for. And I can refer you to my website and my bio, and that'll tell you what I believe in. I believe in doing community service. I believe in giving back to the community. I believe in helping people get their lives back in order after they make mistakes, second chances, so to speak. Those are things that I feel like are important for lawyers and judges to continue doing. And when I become a judge, because I'm claiming it, I will give back and I will continue to teach free continuing legal education. And I will continue to do those things. I will continue to teach law enforcement how to do things properly. You know, one thing I have a reputation for is treating everyone the same way, whether you're white, Black, gay, straight, Latino, whatever your ethnicity or gender or sexual orientation. My reputation, and many, many people can tell you that, is that I treat everyone the same way.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that maybe I didn't ask?
I can't think of much. I think I've kind of talked your ear off here.
Oh, no, definitely said a lot of good
You
important
know,
issues.
I will tell you that, you know, I worked in law enforcement for many years. And, you know, people have asked me about that. And I feel like that's a fair question. Early on in my career, I became committed to safeguarding people's constitutional rights. And I worked very, very hard to teach people, to teach law enforcement officers how to do things the right way. And that's why I was selected to write the new curriculum that was required by the consent decree. I believe that that is a very important thing. And, you know, I will bring that to the bench. I will bring the four pillars of procedural justice to the bench. I will, you know, I've learned not only the law of criminal procedure, criminal law and criminal procedure like the back of my hand, but I've also learned the underbelly of the criminal justice system and some of the things that happen. And, you know, I'm committed to ensure that there are no wrongful convictions in my courtroom. You know, I will ensure that there, you know, an arrest without probable cause will not proceed. And so there, you know, there are things that I believe that my expertise will assist me with in court, on the bench, and for the community.
Well, thank you once again for taking a little bit of your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.